Hello everybody, I want to talk to y'all about gun safety. Um, Different kinds of weapons require different kind of safety, but the main one is right here. This is safety on, this is safety off, this is safety on, this is safety off. Anytime you put your finger in the trigger guard, the safety is off. This particular weapon is a Bersa 380 Thunder, or a Thunder 380, and it's my little buddy. It goes everywhere I go. It's a very user-friendly weapon. I'm fixing to unload it right now. There's the magazine. Now, this is a magazine, not a clip. A clip goes in rifles. I don't know of any that I can think of, pistols, that carries a clip. This is a magazine. Alright, now I've got one in the pipe, so I'm going to get rid of him. There he is. Right there. So this gun now is empty. Alright. This particular weapon has a decocker. The hammer's back. I am not going to touch the trigger. I am just going to pull this lever. This lever is right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's right there. When I pull this down, this hammer will come up, and there's a transfer bar in there that will go in between the hammer and the firing pin and fire the weapon if you're holding the trigger. But with the decocker, that does not come up. See right there? Now, the hammer did not hit the firing pin. It did not hit the firing pin. Because the transfer bar was not in the way. Alright? Now, when you're pointing a gun, now when you clean a gun, make sure it's empty. Check it 3 times. 3 times. To make absolutely sure that there is no shells in that weapon when you start cleaning it. This particular weapon has a teardown bar. Most of them don't. It's right here. Teardown lever. But a lot of them don't. Now on the Glock, there is no safeties. That you've got a pre-trigger and a trigger. When you pull the pre-trigger, that activates the trigger so you can pull it back. Now, I don't particularly like that, but I'll tell you this, a Glock is a good gun. It's a very, very fine weapon. And I'm not knocking Glock by no means. I'm just saying I don't like them for newbies because you will shoot your foot off if you ain't careful with them. Now, the thing about a semi-automatic, which this is, which semi-automatic means every time I pull the trigger it will fire. That is semi-automatic. Now this is double action and single action. Double action meaning when I pull the trigger, the hammer will come up. It will go down, come up, fire the shell. When I pull it again, it'll do the same thing. That's the semi-automatic. Now, it's also single action, which means you pull the hammer down and then pull the trigger. Pull the hammer down and then pull the trigger. That is single action. When you're in semi-automatic mode, well, when you're using a semi-automatic weapon, even on single action, when you first rack it back, pull the slide back, the hammer will go down. You pull the trigger, the slide will go back and initiate the hammer. The hammer, which is this part right here, the hammer will come down. You pull the trigger, it'll go up, fire the shell, the slide will come back, load another shell in it, and you're ready to fire again. Now that is a semi-automatic weapon. This one right here is also a semi-automatic weapon, which every time you pull the trigger it fires. But now this particular one, the first shot is double action, which means when I pull the trigger, the hammer will go back, it will come down, and it will hit the transfer bar, which hits the firing pin. The shell will fire, and the slide will come back, and when it goes back the other way, then it loads another shell into it. That is semi-automatic weapon. Automatic means you hold the trigger and it just keeps firing. I want to tell you something about the magazines on these guns. The magazine, like I said, this is a magazine, this is not a clip. The magazine, a semi-automatic weapon is where your failures come from, is dirtiness and weakness in the spring of the magazine itself. If you keep this magazine loaded for over 2 weeks at a time, the spring will start to develop a memory. The pressure will not be great enough to push the shell up like it's supposed to be in the magazine to throw it into the barrel, which means that you will hang up. On your semi-automatic weapons, make absolutely sure every 2 weeks you download one magazine, load the other one, put the other one up. 2 weeks time, you do the same thing over again. That is a semi-automatic weapon, and that is the main thing that keeps a semi-automatic weapon from functioning properly, is being dirty and the magazine not being rotated. When you buy a semi-automatic weapon, if you can't afford 2 magazines, do not buy the gun. Get you at least 2 magazines. That way you can rotate them every 2 weeks. Another thing, I'm a 1911, which is a style of frame, freak. I mean, I'm the biggest 1911 fan I reckon there is out there. If you'll excuse me just a second, I need to take a drink. I've got some kind of upper respiratory something or other going on. Sorry about that, I really am. A 1911, Kimber makes a fine 1911 weapon. The precision on that weapon is phenomenal. The thing about a 1911 is you want a little bit of slack in the slide, just a little bit. Is what the precision is, where that comes in is on accuracy. Well, it would take a lot of slop to not be able to hit somebody. I mean, it really would. I mean, you'd have to shake it like that and hear it rattling all over the place. But a 1911, you don't want too much precision in the weapon itself, because any kind of dirt can get in there and prevent that slide from working properly. If it don't work properly, it's not a very good defensive weapon, now is it? Pardon me. So make sure that when you buy a 1911 that you're able to move the slide back and forth just a little bit. And that will take care of any kind of dirt or debris that may get in it, and prevent it from stopping the slide. I love a Kimber weapon. A Kimber is a fine ass weapon. It really is. But the precision, the tolerance is so tight that any kind of dirt gets in there and it will stop the slide from functioning properly. But that don't change the fact that I want one. I can't afford it, but I want one. After you fire a few rounds to it, it will get a little looser, and there you go. It takes care of itself. When you oil your guns, do not over oil your guns. Put just enough in the slide and the track that the slide runs in to lubricate, but you don't want it dripping out and falling down and all this mess. Anyway, that is the finer points of, you've got a 25-foot personal bubble, and 25 feet from you, a perpetrator can get to you before you can draw that weapon, prepare it to shoot, and fire. You really need a weapon that is double action, or that you can carry locked and cocked, which means that the hammer is back, safety's on, it's ready to go. All I gotta do is throw the safety off, pull the trigger. That is something that you really need to think about. If there's somebody that appears threatening or seems threatening, pull your weapon out of the holster and hold it down beside you with your finger outside the trigger guard. That way, if he comes charging or she comes charging, all you gotta do is pull your weapon up and fire. You always rack your weapon like this. Like that. Don't do it like this. It's a little bit harder, and you don't have as much control over the weapon when you're putting a shell in. It kind of makes you want to put your finger in the trigger guard to do that. But if you do it like this, then you don't have the tendency to put your finger in the trigger guard. Let me see if there's anything else I can think of. Always be aware of what's on the other side of where the barrel's pointing. I know that on the other side of this wall over here is outside. The other side of this wall right here is outside. The other side of this wall right here is a closet. The other side of the wall right here is a bedroom. Now, this particular wall for sure, I want to make sure I don't point a loaded weapon at that wall with my finger in the trigger guard, because my grandson or my wife might be in there, or any of my grandkids, or my son himself, or daughter-in-laws could be in there, and I don't want to shoot them. always make sure you're mindful of what your surroundings are. Always make sure of your surroundings. And I guess that's about it as far as gun safety. I'm gonna go ahead and put my shell back in my gun. I keep one in the pipe, seven in the. See right there, that hammer went up the safety zone. It did not hit the transfer bar. When you put your magazine in, make sure you give it a little pop right there on the end. Right there, right at the end of putting your magazine in, give it a little pop. That'll make absolutely sure that it's in correctly. You see where my finger has remained this whole time. On a 1911, you can't rest your finger right here because what happens is the slide lock moves over and it will lock the slide and cause a jamming situation, which is not good in the defensive manner. So on a 1911, you want to put your finger right down here on the trigger guard, and if you can tell, you can see where I have put my finger there a lot. I done wore the blue off because that's where my finger stays most of the time. 99.9% of the time, actually, is right there. Make absolutely sure that your gun is unloaded. Absolutely sure. Check 3 times to make sure your gun is unloaded. And the more you tote that gun and get used to that gun, the more it becomes an extension of you, to where you don't actually have to aim. Now, a 380 is a low-powered shell. You have to make absolutely sure of placement. Placement would be, if the perpetrator is coming at me, it would be to your right of the chest, kind of in line with the nipples. You want to pop 2 shots there and 1 right in the head. Do not do the headshot first because the person can keep coming. And that's a known fact. So make sure of placement. Practice a lot. Get you some cheap reload ammo. And get you a full silhouette target. Try to do your best to do 2 pops in the chest, 1 in the head. 2 pops in the chest, 1 in the head. Now, you don't want to just unload on somebody because there might be another perpetrator that you may have to contend with. In which case, you done used up all your bullets and you have none left for the other assailant. Try to keep it at 3. Now, somebody that's strung out on cocaine or something like that, 2 shots in the heart should stop them, but not every time. I have seen people with as many as 9 shots keep coming. A 45 ACP, which most 1911s is calibered for 45 ACP. That cartridge was designed specifically to kill a human being. It won't overpenetrate. Overpenetration is when you shoot, the bullet goes through the person and hits something in behind them. You're responsible for where that bullet ends up and where it lands. That's your responsibility. If there's somebody behind the perpetrator that is a innocent victim, then and you shoot them, you're responsible for that. 9 millimeters, are notorious for over penetration. So is 357 Magnums, 44 Magnums. If you use a real good hollow point, you shouldn't have over penetration. You should have just enough to get the job done and do it efficiently. I don't want to shoot nobody. I hope that every penny I spend on my weapons is wasted, but I will buy more weapons. I will. Anyway, that's it. I hope I done you justice on the gun safety. And that's on semi-automatics. But a revolver is the same way. You keep your finger out of the trigger guard. You keep it beside the trigger guard. Same thing. And if you do that, when you're cleaning your weapon, make absolutely sure you check 3 times. 3 times. Every time. Check it 3 times to make sure that it does not have a shell in it. You can see one if it's in the pipe. But thank you for listening. I hope it's done you justice. I hope I taught it well. And I appreciate you listening.